right. So we are back, everybody. We apologize for the technical difficulties.
Right now.
Going to the second, trying to make sure we are on again. Going to the second. There we go. Trying to make sure we are ready to go. So I'm not doing all that intro all over again.
Well,
I'm not doing all
I'm
that.
not gonna skip out on all of that because if you all didn't hear it the first time, we want you to hear it and get the fullness of it all. So
Okay.
with that, welcome to
Marital Motivation with the
Mackie.
Yes, yes, yes.
And we are really excited. Like I said, we have some special guests in the house on tonight. We have the Pennemans, and we're going to give them an opportunity in just a moment. As everyone, we first ask you to share so that those that were on, you all have an opportunity to get back on again and to share it, because I know it probably came up as a separate link. But anyway, with that, share, and we're going to ask this beautiful family to just to tell us a little bit about themselves, and then following that, we want to hear your love story. And as David and I always say, it's always two versions to the same story. So I'm pretty excited to see what they have to say on tonight. So first, we're going to start with you, Sherelle.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. So my name is Sherelle Penniman, and as of August 18th of this year, we'll be married 6 years. A little bit about who I am. I work for a county. I'm not gonna say what county.
A county.
I work for a county, and I am also a spiritual coach as well. But mainly what I do is work with my husband in our nonprofit organization, which was founded before I came in the mix, but he was so graciously shared it with me, Fit for the Future Community Development Group. And then we also have a mentoring program, the Men's Club, and I'll let him elaborate a little bit more on those.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Brandon Penniman. Super excited to be here. I am honored to be the husband of Sherelle, and also founder of Fit for the Future Community Development Group and the Men's Club Male Mentoring Program. As far as occupationally, I am currently the local missions and outreach director for Crossroads Church of Douglasville, and I'm also a pastor there. And so that's kind of my professional life. Just super excited about this opportunity. We've been married for 5 years. It'll be 6 years in August, and I think this is so important because there needs to be more info out there, more opportunities, more platforms that speak towards marriage, because it is something that, like I told you, David, it's something that there is no manual to marriage when you get married. There is no guidebook, there is no rule book. You only get what people have experienced through their marriage, a little bit of that, and then time is the only way you figure it out. And so,
and even the little bit that people are going to share is going to be the good part.
Right.
They're not going to give you all of what goes on behind the closed doors.
Right.
That's where we differ.
Right.
I'm gonna keep it real all the time.
Right.
So share with us your love story. Talk to us.
I'm gonna let Sherelle share the story first, because every time we have an incident, she's like, "You just tell the story. You tell the story." But I do think it's important to hear both sides of the situation. So I'm gonna let you tell the basis of it, and then I'll come back around.
All right. So the gist of our love story. I started at Golden. I actually was going to Golden for a couple of years, probably about 5 years before God led me into the ministry. And once God led me into the ministry, I had a conversation with the pastor. And when you are a minister at Golden, you have to sit on the front row. So literally for 5 years, I sat on the very last pew in the church, in and out. You know what I mean? Stuck to myself, kept it moving, got the word, thank God. And once I began to walk in the path of ministry, I had to sit on the front row. So when I sat on the front row, when I start sitting on the front row, that's kind of well, no, not just when I started sitting on the front row. That's where he noticed me. That's why I'm thinking about that moment. But when I started working with the ministry at Golden, the pastor decided to put me with the youth ministry. And then Brandon and I started working together on sermons, started preaching together, started just doing a whole lot of stuff within the church with the youth. And it went from that to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So,
what's your interjection?
all right. So let me
What's
tell
your
you.
twist,
Let
sir?
me tell you. First off, I gotta
Tell
take
me
a,
about that front row.
I got okay. Before I go into the marriage story, I meant to say this in the introduction. I have to give a nod because I watched their podcast and David always has on a dope hat. So I had to wear me a hat today because when in Rome, you do as the Romans do.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so nod to the hat
I
first.
was gonna
Yes, sir.
wear one today, but I was like, sitting. So okay, go
You know
on.
how I feel about my friends.
Got the Cam Newton going there. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so the story, man. If I'm honest, when God brought my wife, it was a divine thing. I had been asking and asking and asking because I knew that I needed a wife. I knew that where God was leading my life and just understanding like how God really wanted us to operate. I knew that I needed a wife and I didn't need to be out here in these streets. And so I had been just petitioning God, like, God, where's she at now? Where's she at, God? You know I need a wife. I know I need a wife. Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? And there were so many times that I would literally ask God, like, God, I wonder if me and her been in the same room and we don't even know it. And so I would keep out, that was my prayer, and I would wonder and I would go to different places and wonder, like, is she in this room? Could that be her? Is this her? So long story short, I used to work for a entertainment company, Premier Entertainment Atlanta, where we did like DJ weddings, corporate events, private events, stuff like that. And I would host, so I'll be on the microphone for different events like that. And so we had one wedding that we did. This is around age like 21.
Okay.
I'm 21 at this time.
Mhm.
And we did this one wedding. And I remember coming into the wedding and I remember rolling the equipment. You DJ, so you got to bring the speakers in and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I remember
Been there, done
rolling
that.
the equipment in, and there was this fine lady that was like setting stuff up. And she had like this ankle brace on, she had some flip-flops on, she had this short haircut, and she was just like the boss lady. You could tell that like this wasn't her wedding, but she was the point of contact.
Got
She was the person to talk to get some stuff done. And so I remember thinking, like, man, yeah, she fired God, but she is too grown for me. That was my literal thoughts, right? Now, mind you, at this point, I did not realize that I was actually looking at my wife literally at age 21. Now, fast forward 4 years later, I'm in the choir stand at Golden Memorial United Methodist Church, and this beautiful young lady comes sits on the front row. She got these fishnets on. She got this brimmed hat on, just looking like a first lady. And I'm in the tenor section trying to stay focused. And I just remember, man, she is fine. But at this point, it wasn't she's too grown for me. It was just she is fine. Whoever that
There you
is on the
go.
front row is fine. And so then, long story short, a couple weeks later, I'm coming in because I've been working with the youth already prior to this. A couple weeks later, I come in on a regular Wednesday to work with the students, and there go that fine lady from the front row in the student ministry.
Uh-oh.
So it was like, okay, cool. But you gotta play it cool. You got just like, hey, what's up? Good to see you. Glad you're here. Glad you work with ministry. But long story short, I was leading the ministry at that time. And so, like she said, the pastor had like pretty much put us together to lead the ministry. And so we started spending a lot of time together because we were writing sermons together. So we were writing sermons and lessons for the students, right? And so as we writing sermons and lessons for the students, it inevitably caused us to spend a lot of time together. And us spending a lot of time together just turns into like an inseparable time together. And then in 2017, February 2017, I asked her to be my Valentine. The first time we ever went out on a date. I was like, will you be my Valentine? And I gotta be real. My homeboy Beanie let me borrow his car. He had a Camaro with some rims on it. So I gotta take her out something nice. Can't take her my Honda on the first date. Okay. I should have taken my Honda on the first date, but you gotta impress a little bit. Here's the thing about trying to impress y'all. You can't keep up with it.
Hey.
So you might as well just be real from the jump.
real from the jump.
So message for everybody listening. But long story short, I had to impress her. I was trying to impress her with my homeboy car, and she knew she done seen his car in church. So I don't know what my thought process was. But this first date, we're gonna be in something nice on this first date. So shout out to my homeboy. He let me use the car, and we went out on a date. Where we go? Sweet. Went to Sweet Lounge and did karaoke. And we've been hanging out ever since. And then within a year's time, by August of that following year, we was married. August 18th, 2018. We got married right there at Golden Memorial United Methodist Church.
Beautiful.
That is wonderful.
Now, I have to throw out a question.
Okay.
Because I heard you say, I'm looking for a wife. God, where's my wife? Where's my wife? What did you do, or did you prepare to be a husband? And if so, what did you do to prepare to be a husband?
If I'm totally honest, in that time, I didn't think of specifically like I need to be preparing myself. It was just the thought of I don't want to be living in sin, and I know that marriage is the right way to go. But hindsight being 2020, if I could give any advice, I would tell every young man, as you're preparing for life, as you're preparing for a wife, the best way to get the best wife is to be the best husband before getting married. Developing self prior. And even within the marriage since then, there's been a lot of times where I've realized like, man, I got a lot of growing up to do. I got a lot of growth to do. So truthfully, I felt myself changing in the sense of like, didn't want to just be out here dating openly, but I didn't do anything like personal development wise, aside from what I was already doing, which my mentoring program was already running, my nonprofit was already running. So those professional things were kind of already there to have some type of foundation to build on. But the personal development of my character, it was not paramount in my mind during that time. So
I'm sorry, and I'm going to ask you, Shira, what did you do to prepare, or did you prepare to be a wife? And I'm asking this question. We were in a service on Sunday, so shout out to One Church ATL. They have been doing a series on love, and so they first did married couples, and then they did singles on Sunday. And one of the things they talked about was how we have stopped teaching our young men to prepare to be a husband. We've stopped teaching our young ladies to prepare to be a wife. Instead, we've been preparing someone who wants to be married.
And there's definitely a difference.
Just because you want to be married does not make you wife or husband material. So, Shira, that's my question for you. Did you prepare to be a wife? And if so, how did you prepare?
So for me, I can't say that I really was like preparing when Brandon and I first started dating, and even before he came in, I didn't even expect, what Brandon had for it to be what it is. You know what I mean? So in that moment, I really was just looking at myself with everything. Like I was going through life transitioning, having some moments, being called to the ministry, but don't want to do it because this is not who I am. Like I'm more of a sit on the last pew type of, person, you know what I mean? So it was really, I was just going through a process of trying to identify Sherelle. And I believe that within itself will help you be a better wife when you're identifying who you are, your ins, your outs. When I got married, I still had a long way to go. You know what I mean? Because he taught me a whole lot about myself. It's just like a mirror. You see yourself in a different reflection, once you're married. And it's like, okay, you know what I mean? That's the only thing you can kind of say to that. So I have to be honest and say I wasn't necessarily preparing to be a wife. I was just preparing to be a better me, a whole me, just trying to figure out what it is that Sherelle needs to be doing in this walk of life right now. So yeah.
I feel like, well, not that I feel, I know that, like we said, that in this day and age, what we are teaching our young men, or with social media and with the world and society, they're teaching our young men to pursue, but to be predators. not to pursue to be one that provides, one that takes care of, one that nurtures, one that loves. And shout out to Pastor Green and Pastor Bell at One Church ATL, because the two sermons that they preached and taught were amazing. It was such good information, but one of them said that, and it's like, man, it made me reflect and think about my son and daughter. Like, did I teach them right? Did I teach them what it was to be a husband and how to be there for, how, for her, So another thing that cracked me up though with you two is just like, God always gets us out of our comfort zone.
Oh man.
You know what I'm saying?
Every time.
Every single time you try to sit on the backity back.
Back to the back.
Backity back, I'm trying to just hover in the doorway. And then he just moves you right up front. But it's also amazing when he uses his omniscience and his divinity to just orchestrate things, for you to see her 4 years earlier and be like, she a boss.
Can I add to it?
Go for it.
So it's deeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I met her 4 years earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but when I was a junior in high school, I was in this program called CCI,
Mm-hmm.
which is like a college preparatory program.
Okay.
And I had this teacher. She would always talk about this young African American young man that pretty much lived with her, and that she would like just was almost taking on as a son. She'd always talk about him. She'd always talk about D. She'd talk about D. Always talk about D. And come to find out, I'm just gonna make a long story short. Come to find out, when I was in 11th grade and she was talking to me about the kid that would always be at her house and stuff, tell me why it was Sherelle's literal biological brother.
The baby brother.
One of my
Wow.
teachers
Yeah.
knew her brother when I was in 11th grade. So it was like you said, it's God's omniscience. The desires of your heart. Talk about him providing the desires of your heart. Even when you don't know it or think it's happening, God is working.
Absolutely. Always working.
So even with that, I'm going to transition a little bit because you're talking about how God is working and preparing, for marriage, or even not preparing, to be a wife or a husband. So one of the things we want to tap in on a little bit tonight is how you're growing up, your household, the way you were brought up influences your thoughts and the way you see marriage, who you are in the marriage. I know Sherelle was talking about how it was like looking in a mirror, with that. And we always use the phrase iron sharpens iron. And that's that friction is not always comfortable, but like you said, that's that same thing, looking in that mirror and like, wow, that's there. Wow, I didn't you deal with that. So I'll start first, and then I'll ask David to go, and then we'll ask you all as well to share. So I grew up in a household up until the age of 13. I was with both of my parents. At the age of 13, my mother died, and I remained with my father. So therefore, I was brought up in a single parent household with a father instead of a mother. And I am the baby of the family. So with all of that, being the youngest, I have some expectations. And then coming up in that house, coming up in a household with my father being the one pouring into me, taught me some things as well. So, David, I'm going to give you an opportunity to give your background, and then we're going to flip it.
Oh, that was real short. I thought it was going to be longer than that. So I grew up in a household with both my parents. They are still married to this day. It will be 51 years in August that they've been together. And they were the best examples that I have ever had in my life for marriage. However, it was the fairy tale marriage. Like, the view that I saw, I never saw my parents argue, never saw them fight, never saw them have a disagreement. Everything was always kittens, rainbows, and sunshine. And so when I got married, the first time we had a disagreement, I was devastated. You know,
Where's
because
the rainbow?
yeah, I'm trying to taste that rainbow. But you know, so growing up with both my parents, and they're still together, but they are as silly as can be. I love to just sit in the room with them and just listen to them tell stories. We were over there a month ago, and I don't know what prompted the conversation, but my parents started going to how they met, and they met at a restaurant. My dad worked in the back, my mom worked in the front, and this story went on for like 2 hours. I literally just pulled out my phone, hit record, literally, because it was just like just gems, you know. So that's my background. So I had an unrealistic view. I think everybody has an unrealistic view of marriage, but mine was unrealistic because I saw all of the good, all of the great, and none of the bad. So I had a false sense of what marriage was. So
Okay. I guess I can go first. And so my background, my grandmother, I was raised with my grandparents, my mom, mother, as well as my father, parents. My mom, mother, Grandma Rosie, bless her heart, bless her soul. She's going to be with God. She brought me home from the hospital. She's the one that actually brought me home from the hospital, and she raised me until I was about 2. And at this time, she was also raising her other grandchildren as well. So she had a conversation with my father's mom, which is Ruby, Ruby and Rose. That was my heart. So she had a conversation with my grandma Ruby and my grandfather Buddy, and that's when I moved in with my grandfather, my father parents is what I'm trying to say. And so they raised me until my adulthood. Now, my grandfather and my grandmother, Ruby and Buddy,
Ruby and Buddy,
right? January of next year, I think it's January 2nd, they'll be married for 60 years.
Wow.
And yeah, that's a while because I saw my grandfather is the one that does not bite his tongue. He gonna give it to you like it is. He's a outgoing person, like to dance, like that was his vibrant personality. My grandmother, on the other hand, she's a bubbly person and nice, but she's very sweet and meek. Like she's not gonna argue. She's not gonna, the most curse word she may say is, I don't even know. I can't even think of anything. But then even in that, she'll put her hand over her mouth because that's just not who she is. So seeing the dynamics of those two, where there are moments where my grandfather, he get hypey and, having this moment, and my grandmother just meek, she in there just cooking, like everything is okay. And I'm like, as I became older, those are my thoughts. You know what I'm saying? But my grandma was always just so kind and just so sweet and just, buddy, it's okay. And, it's all right, buddy. And I'm telling you, Buddy Banks was something else, but, love it. And amazing man now, absolutely amazing. But he was a different energy. They were just completely different. So when it came to marriage, crazy thing is I didn't really have like this is exactly what I want my marriage to look like. It was more so, he's not gonna be talking to me crazy. You know what I mean? What's not gonna happen? Right. Instead of like, this is what it is that I desire. It was like, this is what's not gonna be transpiring when God sees fit to bring me my husband. But needless to say, they've been together again for 60 years. So it says a lot about the two. And even now when I sit and listen to them just had a conversation, I'm just like, Lord have mercy. How you doing, girl? But it's a beautiful thing. And I thank God for them bringing me up in a family where our foundation was God. Like my grandfather on the deacon board, deaconess, all his life grew up in a Baptist church, and my grandmother was an evangelist. So it's like God was always my foundation with them, period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Brand.
So how God do it's just like you said, he will stretch you out of your comfort zone. So mind you, she is the oldest of 8. 7. She's are you the 8th?
Yes.
So she is the oldest of 7 total. And I am the youngest of 6. Right? She grew up with grandparents.
That right there is a whole sermon all by
Really? Okay.
That's a series.
Right. There you go.
Really.
So
tune into Netflix. We go.
right. So she grew up that way. I grew up as the baby of 6. I grew up in a household where my dad was there until about age 6, and then around age 7, him and my mom separated, and then eventually around like 12, they officially divorced. So I grew up single parent household with the nurturing, loving care of my mom. Now, uh, uh, just a little background to it. My mom had a miscarriage right before me, and so the ongoing joke in my household, according to my mom, is "I took you from your dad." So like, forced me into this world type deal. But it definitely was a call in my life from God to be here. And so in regards to how that dynamic plays a role in marriage is it's it's like two totally different sides. As she mentioned, she's coming to it with the mindset of you not gonna talk crazy to me. And I'm coming to it with a mindset of I want to give you the love I didn't see my mom get. And I want to love, 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 love you. And so I think what happened was the communication got misconstrued because it comes off as like controlling or overbearing because I've been nurtured by my mom so much that now I'm giving that overbearing love and she's like, get up off me. Right. So this has been like the dynamic that is a part of the growth, but I believe that it's a great thing because once again, hindsight being 2020, you start to realize that okay, God, you brought her in my life to balance me out. Because there comes a point where if you overlove, if you over put yourself into somebody, then you lose self and you stop personal development and your whole life gets wrapped around what she got going on. I remember early in our marriage, like my go-to comment was, "You okay? You all right? You okay? You all right? You all right? You all right?" And so I had to learn over time, like, yeah, she's good, but she grew up it was just her. It's her and her grandparents. So she's been used to isolated time all her life. So now having somebody that's in her face in her life all the time, that's a different volume and a different rhythm. While I grew up in a house, the baby of 5, it's always people in the house. We always in each other's face. So I believe that those nuances have played a role in our marriage as far as the growing up. But I think it also has caused for the perfect balance because we both need each other.
Absolutely. God always uses our spouse to bring out. I wasn't talking about my friend Jermaine, but God always uses our spouse to bring out something in us. Nobody else can. He can't use anybody else but our spouse to do that. There's no other relationship like it. A child and parent relationship is different between a spouse. You leave everything and you cleave to your spouse. You become one. So God uses our background, our upbringing, and He takes those things that we're either hurt from or have the wrong point of view about, and He uses our spouse to show us where we need to grow, where we need to mature, and then it's like, man, yeah, I am kind of jacked up.
Yeah, right.
And you just go to the Father, you repent, but you got to listen to Him when He's talking, and allow the process to work. Because usually we just fight against it, and actually, no, we don't fight against it. We fight against the person. We fight against our spouse instead of learning to deal with an uncomfortable situation and grow.
I believe pride and ego get in the way so many times. One of our pastors from the church is on here. His name is Chris Comstock. One of the things he always says is that if you focus on your vertical relationship, then your horizontal relationships will be just fine. If you focus here, then these relationships, they'll be good. But like you said, it takes a certain level of humility to even receive it because coming from a human, it's an attack. But if you hear from God, it's no. She is developing you and helping to prune you and get the worst sides of you dug out so that you can be better.
Buff it on now. Make it smooth.
There are times when I know I would hear God say, "Be quiet. You better not say that." And I'm like, God, but He punking me right now. Like I feel like He punking me right now. Like and it like me just having a very transparent conversation with God.
No, I feel you.
Like, God, I gotta say something. So one thing that my mother-in-law, I love her so much. I thank God for my mother-in-law. Oh Lord have mercy. I thank God for her. I actually prayed for a mother-in-law like my grandmother, because my grandmother used to pay rent for girlfriends, not wives. Like my grandmother would go above and beyond just because that's her heart. You know what I mean? You're
Mhm.
dating her son. You got a child by her son. So it is nothing that she would not do to make sure you and that child is good. So I prayed and asked God for a mother-in-law like that because I saw my grandmother. Thank God he blessed me with one. But one thing that she used to always tell me, because I did tell her once, like, man, I feel like your son be punking me, and I have to tell God, like, yo, I ain't no punk. Like, you know that about me, God. And she was like, well, you got to be a punk for God. You got to be a punk for God. And it's like, it changed my perspective, because I may not be a punk for nobody else, but I'm gonna be a punk for my
I'm a
father.
punk for God.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
it's like, I would be a part of God because I love you and I know you got the last
Mhm.
say. So yeah, it's definitely about the growth too. It definitely is.
And I'm going to share this because I purposely did not tell how I felt that my childhood growing up affected us in marriage. I purposely saved that because for me, with my mother being taken out of the picture, it left this major void in my life. Through bad counsel, um, my family never got us in counseling or anything like that, you know. So it was just like one day my mother was there, then she wasn't, and then we were just supposed to keep skipping
moving.
down the street
Yeah.
like nothing ever happened. But there was this huge void in my life. So when David came along in my life, when God blessed me
No, he
with
blessed me
him,
too.
yeah, he did.
I got a
appreciate
whole
it.
lot
I
of favor.
appreciate it. But when the Lord blessed our union and brought us together, I wanted David to love me like my mother loved me. And that was something I tried to force on him unknowingly. I didn't even realize I was doing it until we finally tripped over the big elephant under the carpet. That we had been sweeping and sweeping everything under the carpet. And when we finally hit that bump, and to the point where we were just like, okay, this ain't working. This ain't working. It's time for one of us to pack up and go. And when we went into counseling, then that was when I went in like, please tell him what all he's not doing. He's not doing it. He ain't got this marriage thing down. Can you tell him what he's doing wrong? And in that mirror came in front of me, and I realized that it was me. You know, I was trying to get my husband to love me like my mother. He's not capable of doing that. And so, like I said, it caused a lot of friction in the marriage. And I had to learn only God, again, that vertical. I had to learn that only God could fill that void. You know, he can only love me like my husband. And this love for me is, I'll say, unimaginable, because I mean, my husband loves me. I don't question that. People that see us and meet me for the first time is like, you know, he loves you, right?
Right.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. You know, but that caused so much tension again in our marriage. So I'm gonna go back again.
No, before you do,
Okay, I'm
I just
sorry.
want to throw a little insert in.
Go on,
You know,
insert.
with you struggling with the loss of your mom, we never realized, like I said, we didn't realize until counseling that that's what it was. But through the years, there was just this immense pressure that you just couldn't figure out where it was coming from. It's like, why is everything so intense? And then when we got to the root of it, it was like, oh, and then it was just like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like we started to communicate better and talk to each other and, you know, hold each other accountable and, you know, just be vulnerable with each other. I think so many couples get married, but they're still not open and vulnerable with each other. You know, they still have their secrets, they still have their issues that they don't tell their spouse. And when you go through counseling, or if you go through a moment where it's just so intense and you don't have a choice, that vulnerability is, there's nothing that compares to it. It just makes you draw close together. And that's when that cleave really comes from. The two becoming one. It's like when you're that vulnerable and that transparent, you can't see one from the other. You know what I'm saying? You can't. Your issues are my issues. Yeah, I'm going to God for you. I'm not taking on the weight of your issues, but I'm taking your issues to the Father like they were my issues.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So that was all I would say.
Yeah, that was good.
That was
That
good.
was good. I'm
Aye.
glad you put that in there.
Aight. That'll be a clip later.
Oh, okay. There you go. There you go. So I'm about to back to you all again, though, because I want to hear maybe if you all can, we talked about you wanting to overshower her with the love and affection. And first of all, before we even go there, shout out to your mom. Talk about her. Talk about
it,
her.
sir.
Oh my gosh. So to talk about my mom, I can't talk about my mom when I talk about my grandfather.
Okay.
Because the reason my mom is the way she is because I had a grandfather that was a man of God. Like a grandfather that committed his life to God. Crazy parallels. Once again, my mother her mother ended up leaving in the marriage early because my grandfather was a pastor and my grandmother did not want to be a wife of a pastor. My grandmother was kind of in the streets, gang, and my granddaddy was narrowing it down and really focusing on his relationship with God and being a pastor full time. And so my grandmother left, but my grandfather stayed and kept all 5 kids. So he's a single parent to 5 kids, and my grandfather was that guy. Every Friday is Fish Friday. He's bringing it home. He's the one getting her feminine products when she's first going through this process. This is my mom. So my grandfather was just so in her life and instilled God in her so much that inevitably it just rubbed off on her and was part of what we experienced growing up in life. Now, did she have it perfect? No, not at all. None of us do. But I know that my grandfather's influence on my mom played a role in who my mom is. And as far as the congratulations, she did just get remarried. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Yes, that is super big. And it is one of those situations where it's like, the full circle of life again. It's like, I can't believe that I'm up here marrying my mom because I got to be the pastor to literally walk her down the aisle, give her away, and then marry her, all in a matter of 20 minutes. So, but what I have seen and what the biggest congratulations I give to my mom is that she showed me what faith really looks like. This marriage is us living in a prayer, right? You know, there's a song, "Living on a Prayer." No, we living in our prayer. It's the prayer manifested. And my mom had been praying, gotta be what, 10, 15, 20 years at this point. Being no boyfriends, no dating. I never saw nobody sleeping in her bed or living at our house. Never. And my mom was consistent with that. And she waited on God, waited on God, waited on God. And now to see, man, you waited on God and God did what he does.
That's awesome.
And I got to be a part of that. That was a beautiful thing. Another just parallel side part of the story that I kind of share with you. The cool part about it is that they originally planned to get married in November, but God told my mom to push the date to February when she got married last week. Unbeknownst to her, my daughter had lost her grandfather on her mom's side, and like literally the week before. And then that very next week, my mom gets married and she gets a new granddad. So it's so many parallels, and God is so divinely orchestrating time that you just need to get in alignment with Him. Just get in His flow, and things work out. So yeah, that's kind of the dynamics with my mom.
Beautiful. So again, congratulations.
Yes, thank you, Mama.
Congratulations. But now you brought up that you have a daughter.
Yes.
And this was pre-marriage.
Right.
Okay.
So,
So that means you became an instant. Do you refer to stepmother or
No, we
Okay.
do bonus mom.
Okay.
Bonus mom.
Love it.
Yeah, we do bonus mom. Yeah. Yeah, I love my Bailey Bell. It was different. It was different. It was challenging. It was frustrating. It made the old me want to come out so many times. You know what I'm saying? It was just so many emotions with it overall. It's something different. And the crazy part is growing up, I used to always like talk to older people, like, older women, like they used to always call about, especially my uncles and significant others, like
Mhm.
when they're having issues or whatever the situation may be. God always gave me a godly wisdom, like, well, I can just impart in you what God
Mm.
said and what you should do. Well, not what you should do, what God telling you to do.
Mhm.
So I used to always tell my friends and those women, like, never disregard a man because they have a child, because you just never know if you,
Mhm.
baby. When I got in the situation, I just said, Lord have mercy. I would not change anything, but I would do a whole lot different. I would do a whole lot different.
Okay, talk about that. You don't. That's
Oh Jesus. Okay, so what I would do different is, first, Bailey and I, we've always had like a good relationship. Um, n- my relationship, I'm trying,
She
Lord.
tried to.
I'm
She
trying
tried
to,
to
I'm
make it
trying to
into
fix
this.
it. The relationship with her mother is not so, you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
not so good. And one thing about it is God deal with me spiritually a whole lot. So there's so many things that I would see spiritually and it would aggravate me, and I would move in the flesh instead of moving in the spirit of things. So in saying that, when God showed me, hey, here's your heads up, I would go into prayer about it. Like I would fast about it instead of doing and moving on emotions, and how, I allowed the enemy to use me, pretty much what it is,
okay.
and,
Tell me
and
what
let
it
my
is.
emotions get the best of me in certain situations. But I thank God that as I grew, praise God, and matured in Him, I'm handling it the way that He needs me to handle it now, and I see my peace on a whole different level. And I see Bailey and our relationship being consistent and not affected by other entities, and all that other good stuff.
Can,
So
can I take some time to edify my wife, please?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Please do.
Okay, so just for note's sake, because her humility is awesome, but I do want to acknowledge that she has been the greatest bonus mom that a daughter could ask for. My daughter, whether she realizes it or not, and I think she does. My daughter, first off, my daughter loves Sherelle. Um, but whether my daughter knows it or not, she's blessed to have Sherelle in her life. My Sherelle has walked Bailey through some growing phases of her life. Sherelle is able to talk to Bailey in ways that I can't talk to her.
Mhm.
Sherelle is able to get to Bailey in ways that even I, as a father, there are times where I feel like, dang, like, how's she getting Bailey to respond like this, and I can't get Bailey to respond? Like, how does she know exactly what questions to ask to probe? And
Mhm.
her and Bailey having like in-depth conversations. Me and Bailey have pretty good depth conversations, but they're having like in-depth conversations. Like
Mhm.
she is drawing it out of my daughter, and she has just, I've seen her be conscious about how she treats my daughter. And I just want to publicly say thank you for the way that you love on Bailey, because that's important to me. Bailey, before I was married, there was Bailey, and Bailey was a big part of changing my life and changing my thought process, and also I need a wife, right? Because okay, got me once now,
Mhm.
but we can't be just having babies out here.
Mhm.
That is not okay. Um, and she has just seamlessly like loved my daughter, and love beyond the nuances of a blended family, right? There's a lot of nuances that come with blended families and prior relationships and stuff like that. And graciously, she has loved my daughter well. And there's a lot of times where step situations or bonus mom situations don't work out. And the two hate each other. And there's been moments where they didn't like each other, true enough. But overall, for the majority of the time, I know my daughter's thankful for Sherelle, and I'm super thankful for Sherelle and how she's loved Bailey, despite the fact she's loved Bailey like she's her own kid, and that's a
That's
beautiful
that is beautiful. I saw Sherelle point up when we were like, she's drawing stuff out that I can't. It just shows the importance of both the
thing.
mother and the father, the male and female in a
Mhm.
relationship. Because when you're raising a child, God put male and female together to raise multiply,
Right.
and we all bring out something in the child. We all have our own way of communicating. My son is a mama's boy in a good way. This boy calls his mother every day on his way to work.
That's beautiful.
He is 23 years old.
Wow.
Hey mom, what's going on? How you doing?
Beautiful.
If she out the house and it's dark, where you going?
Right.
But it's just like, but then there are the conversations that I have with my son, and they're totally different. It's
Yeah, because he don't call you out when you out after dark.
nah. I'm gonna keep that one to myself.
Uh-uh.
But it's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
Same thing with our daughter. It's a totally different conversation that I have with her, and a totally different conversation, which is weird because I feel like Ladybug is more in the past. She would draw to me more than she would her, and I would just be like, "What is going on?" You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
Right.
we are so much alike. It's literally. I told somebody at work the other day. I was like, "My daughter is just a female version of me. You just put a girl's face on me. She got my temperament, everything. She ain't about the foolishness. She gonna keep it short and sweet, But it just shows, like I said, going back to the importance. You are going to be able to connect with this child in a way that he can. And like I said, God does orchestrate your steps and give you the words to say. Um, but thank you. I know it don't mean as much coming from me as it does him, but thank you for being that. Because like you said, I see so many people with that dynamic and it doesn't work always, and you said, oh, sometimes they get mad at each other. But that's the thing that people don't realize. You get mad with your own family. We put unfair
Exactly.
expectations on our spouses, on our children, or we act like they are like there's never supposed to be an issue,
Right.
Yeah.
but we don't like our own family half the time sometimes. You know what I'm saying? We want to hug them and punch them in the same breath.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
So
Yep.
when it comes up in your relationship,
Yes.
or it comes up with a child, or it comes up with something else, it's like give that same grace,
Yeah.
that same mercy,
Yeah.
which is not what we do a lot of times.
Yeah.
There's such a heavy point right there that
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the greatest nuances of marriage. And this is a marital podcast. If there's any message y'all take, the grace that you expect, you got to give that grace.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to expect the grace than to give the grace.
Mhm.
And I feel that anybody who's new in marriage or working on marriage, man, if you can grasp the concept of the grace that God has given you and apply that same grace, first off, it's going to help you to not be so mad and angry all the time. But it's such a relieving thing for the person who may be the transgressor, the person who may have done wrong. When you can give that grace, man, it just changes the whole atmosphere. When you can give and a lot of people say that God gives unconditional love, but if you really read the Bible, it never, not one time, says unconditional. It always says unfailing love. And there's a difference. There are conditions behind the love because there's an expectation of loyalty when it comes to the love. But despite it all, God's love never fails us. And I believe that when you can get that concept when it comes to marriage, that despite it all, this love not gonna fail you. I may not like you right now. I may not feel like being around you right now.
Right.
But I'm not gonna fail you. I'm not gonna give up on you. I'm gonna still love you through the craziness, through the minutia. I believe that that's a win.
That's marriage.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
So I want to go a little bit deeper, if you don't mind, Sherelle, with you. I know you talked about it was your mother's mother that brought you home from the hospital. So, and then from there, it was your father's parents. So, again, speaking for me, I know with my mother's death, there was a void with your biological mother not being in your life. Because if I remember correctly, you did say she is still living, correct?
Yes, she is.
So with that relationship not being there, and I'm assuming not being there, how do you feel that has even impacted the way you love your husband and being your bonus store?
Mm, okay. So first, okay, it's kind of it's hard for me to explain, so I'm gonna just explain it the best way I can. Um, I I never or I don't feel like there was a void with my mom because it's kind of like I knew what my mom had going on and I felt like I was at the best place possible. However, there was, and I didn't realize it until last year. There was a piece of me that was like, bro, why you just gonna get it right? Because I see I see other people, my age, grown women that have beautiful relationships with their mothers. And I'm like, that's a phenomenal thing. Now, don't get me wrong, my grandmother that passed, Rosie, and my grandma Ruby, I have outstanding relationships with them. Talk to them about anything, can go to them about anything. They are my mothers, period. That's just
Mhm.
what it is. And they get first pick over anybody. So I didn't really feel a void from my mom because I got the love from both of my grandmothers, that womanly love. But I did, like, when I see relationships, mother-daughter relationships that's older, and it's like, wow, that's beautiful. So I have those moments like, why you didn't just get it right? Or why you couldn't be like that. But it's nothing where I'm like missing something with that. I think more so that's probably more so with my father, because my father, he was actually in my life, but not in my life as far as in the same household. Graduations, he there. Any activities, functions, he there. Every Sunday, he's there. Sometimes every other day because I'm living with his mother. And so my grandmother had 3 boys. She had a miscarriage, which was a girl, and she always wanted a little girl. So when I came along, it was like, this is my daughter. So that's why I really got that love. Is like, this is my daughter. You know what I mean? That I lost. So in saying that, I didn't feel that void or anything with my mom. It was like, Daddy, you had yourself together 110%. So where were you? You know what I mean? Why you didn't? You know what I mean? So it really wasn't like that towards my mom. Yeah.
So has with either one of those, has that shown up in your marriage?
Um, with Bailey, it definitely showed me what not to do. Also, and I believe, and I was going to say it earlier, but I didn't want to just be talking. Um, when I was growing up, my father, he dated, he dated, and and, and so, you know, women, women stepmoms. And there was only one particular woman that I actually referred to as my stepmom, Miss Lisa. I love her to death. Miss Sonia was on her earlier, my aunt. But other than that, other women that he dated, they pretended to be a stepmom. But I absolutely hated the relationship and the dynamics because they treated me like I was a grown woman, and you want to have conversation with me about my dad and try to pull me into what they had. So I had a bad taste about stepmothers. And I said to myself, okay, I'm definitely not gonna be that. Like that, I'm definitely not gonna be that
So you're
woman.
not gonna punk Bailey.
No, all right. I'm definitely not gonna fuck Bailey. I'm definitely not gonna treat her like that. So again, with Bailey, it just showed me what not to do. Now, when it came to my husband, I didn't grow up in a very affectionate family. Now, my dad, he would always address me as cutie. Hey, cutie. Hey, beautiful. Always. But as far as the hugging and kissing on, that's not me. That was a major thing in our relationship. I don't even like people in my personal space unless I come in your space. Like if I'm standing somewhere and somebody walk up to me, it's just like I instantly just scoot over. And sometimes I do it subconsciously, but that's just what it is. So that was a struggle because, like Brandon said, and I'm like, bruh. Or if he want to kiss me 3 times, I'm like, just one time is good. Like, so that that was
Save mine for later.
You gotta save mine for later.
Now.
that was the dynamics of our relationship, though. Like, I had to learn to be softer. I had to learn to be softer. Like my grandmother raised 3 boys. I saw what they did. I saw how they moved with females. So I was very reserved when it came to men and boys overall. Like I had a lot of male friends. And so it's like when I got with Brandon, that was still my mindset. Like I see how men operate. I see how y'all roll. Like I was raised in Bankhead, like graduated from Harper Archer. So it's like that's the rough side, as people would say. So it's like I just seen a different dynamic. And it was just like, all right, I already know what y'all about. And you know, you're not coming over here on the nonsense. So I was very hard and I had to learn how to soften up with my husband. And I'm still learning. Still a process.
Curious, what's your love language?
Preferably
Not physical touch.
no.
We know that.
I would say gift of affirmations, but I can't even say that, but it's like when you do something for me, I can't
Gifts of
think of-
service.
Yes, service. Like
Mhm.
I
Acts of
love
service, yeah.
cleanliness. Like, you know, I'll go around cleaning up something all day because I just like for things to be a certain way. So when I see him washing the dishes, when I see him washing the clothes, sometimes I don't wash those clothes, but when I see him doing certain things, it's like, man, I appreciate that because I have to do it on my own. So that makes me really happy. I don't show a lot of excitement. Like that's just not who I am. But I was like, oh God, thank you. Hallelujah. Oh, I ain't gotta do that. And I'd be thrilled. So yeah, that's my love language.
Mr. Brown.
Love language. My love language is definitely physical touch and words of affirmation. Like you tell me I'm doing a good job, I'm about to do a super good job.
Right.
Okay.
You about to build a house.
Right. You did the best job I've ever seen. Okay, washing the mess out of these dishes. Okay. So those are the two for me. In regards to parental upbringing and how that affected marriage, not so good. Mine is the absolute opposite. Like I said, I have a nurturing mom that's super like present. I am her child that she like every other kid just happened. I'm the child that she like desired. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing against my siblings because me and my siblings have a great relationship and we all just have a very good understanding and love each other well. So it never caused division or there was never like she treated me different than she treated everybody else or anything like that. But it was a heavy dose of love. A lot of love, a lot of love, a lot of love. So in the marriage, I come in, that's just who I am. A lot of love, a lot of love, a lot of love. And she is like, get out my face. And I'm like, but I'm trying to be in your face, and I like your face a lot. So that is the part I seen have the biggest effect. Another big part was that I learned later on was the absence of my father affected my response to struggle in the sense of instead of being able to just be quiet, walk away, let it air out, um, not care, whatever, it was, I got something to say about what's going on. Let's talk about this right now. And that I believe that came from growing up in a single parent household with a mom. And that's why I feel like it's so important for men, young men to have men, because you need somebody to teach you how to chill, somebody to teach you how to release, let it go.
Walk away,
Walk
bro. Walk
away.
away.
Just
Walk
be
away, bro.
quiet. Right? And I'm working on that. I'm working on just being okay. So yeah, that's been the biggest part. And then the other part with her, like we said, with her being her dynamic being isolated solo dolo and my dynamic being wanting to be around each other, I take the separation as a dislike. Instead of it
That's
just
rejection.
yes, rejection. That's it. Right. Instead of it being she just needs her space. And so I saw early in our marriage that causes rift because now I don't want to go to bed angry, but I'm going to bed angry because I'm mad that she mad, or I think that she mad, but a lot of times she not mad. She just being quiet, but she mad, so now we mad. So I don't know what's wrong with her. Because I'm just like, good morning. You know what I'm saying? And she's like, pump your brakes, bro. You know what I'm saying? And so there will be times where she's just angry, or I feel like she's angry. And so now I'm responding in an emotional, even form female-ish type of response because this is how I see my mom respond. This is what I've grown up in, and it's causing rift between us because I'm misconstruing her energy, and then it's causing me to get outside of myself. I'm not being the joyous Brandon that I am because now I'm angry Brandon because I'm being rejected. And on top of that, my whole thought is I want to give you the love that I seen women desire. I seen my mom desiring the love of a man and somebody to be affectionate and nurturing and give and provide in these ways. And so that's my energy is you about to get everything that my mom didn't get from my dad when he left. I'm gonna give it to you. And that's not what she needed.
Right.
What she needed was proper communication and somebody that could listen, and somebody that could really understand where she was and give her space to grow.
Absolutely. And remembering to go up to God, like you said earlier. And we looked at each other because we say that all the time. It's like we can't guess, we can't perceive what our spouse is going through, and when they're in that moment or whatever it is, truth of the matter, it's not our responsibility. It's God's responsibility to deal with that. And that's hard to do because as if we're one, like I said, we want to take care of each other, but just remembering to go up. Yeah, we can't fix everything. We got to go up to the Father and be like, okay, Lord. And I think we've learned that over the last 2 years the most, because when I get irritable, done, and I'm just like, I ain't talking. I don't want to do nothing. I don't even want to eat. I don't want to be bothered, So, but she was just like, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do?
I took it personal.
She took it personally, and it has nothing to do with her. Because 9 times out of 10, what it is, you're upset about something within you that you don't like, and you're processing that. God is dealing with you with that thing, and you're trying to go up, and you can't. You start taking it out on everybody else, and it has nothing to do with you, But like I said, I understand that you just gotta go up to the Father.
Yeah, and I've had to learn in those moments. Whereas I used to take it personally, like, what's wrong? What did I do? And even if I didn't ask him, I would be processing it in my own head. But did I say something? Did I do something? Is he angry with me? What did I do? And as I would be going through all of that, now I have learned, boo, let me know when you're good. If you're angry with me, you're going to have to tell me. You got to tell me because at this point now, I'm not going to assume that I did anything. You go and let you and God deal with this. And then when you're ready to talk, then you come back. If it's something that I did, then we're grown. Let's communicate. If it's something that I did, let's talk about it. But otherwise, I'm not going to take on that weight that it has anything to do with me.
And a lot of times in our relationships, also, like I said, when we deal with our childhood and our upbringing and everything, we take the voids or the issues and the dramas and we overcompensate for them in our current relationships. We don't even realize we're doing it. But, the scripture even says that, when I was a child, I thought as a child, people always separate that from the next verse that says we see through a glass darkly and that we see in part. And it's like, when you're a kid, all that kid stuff, it affects your vision as an adult, and, it's just like, okay, Father, deal with me with this. Help me get over this situation. Show me how to grow. Show me how to mature. Show me how to overcome so I'm not tearing her down or, causing undue stress into her life or making her go through struggles that she ain't even supposed to be going through because she's trying to take care of me in my struggle, so.
And another thing too, this was another thing, word that came up one of the Sundays here recently, since they've been doing these messages on love, is that understanding your spouse is a gift. So if this is my gift, and I see
I ain't just a gift. I'm a wonderful gift. I need you to put some extra adjectives on that.
Descriptive words.
I need some descriptive words.
Being that this is my most amazing,
thank you,
most marvelous,
thank you,
absolutely adorable. Did I mention handsome?
There you go. Yes, affirmations. One of them.
Okay. my gift, even if I see my gift struggling, then again it goes back to that vertical relationship. So I've learned to again not internalize it and take it that it's anything that I did, but also I've learned to go up to God. God, whatever he's dealing with, whatever he's struggling with, whatever he's going through, might not even be struggling with anything. He might just have a moment where he just wants to be quiet and just doesn't want to be bothered. Even if that's the case, let me not feel abandoned,
Mhm.
because ultimately, going back to my childhood, with my mother dying and that void there, I felt abandoned as a child. So therefore, again, I can't put that on him. Now there is times we have to compromise. He can't always be in a position that he don't want to be up around me if spending quality time is my love language. Can't always be in his own little box. It has to be that compromise, but I also have to compromise to say, okay, let me give him his space. And I think now I've gotten so good at giving you your space that now you're coming in mine.
Yes.
Finding that sweet spot. That sweet spot.
My love language was, when we first got married, physical touch and words of affirmation. And now it is, I retook that test literally like a month ago, and it's quality time and physical touch. Or actually, quality time and words of affirmation. And then physical touch is like a close third. And it's just over the years, I have been, like you said, I just enjoy spending time
With your gift?
absolutely with my wonderful, amazing gift. But what kind of questions y'all have for all? Was there anything that y'all wanted to bring up and talk about before we wrap up tonight?
So I was gonna ask like where did it start, but we already know where it started as far as in the church. But one of the things that I wanted to ask is like in the early part of your marriage, early first couple years or so, what were the biggest challenges you guys faced like as newlyweds?
Getting to know each other. Oh, that's easy.
Getting
Getting to
to
know and understand each other. Because even though David and I were friends, quick backstory, we met in 92.
Hey, you're up on.
Oh goodness, don't say it
That was
like
a good
that.
year. That was a good year. That was a
Oh,
good year.
man.
A lot of good
Yeah.
stuff was
Talk
happening
about
in '92.
Hashtag I feel old. We met in 92, and then we did not start dating until 97. So we were friends. And to be friends that long, and I mean genuinely, we were friends. We were hanging out almost every single day. I mean, this was my buddy, my pal. We did a lot of firsts together. It took me to my first football game. I took him to his first play. Like we spent all this time together. And then when we got married, I was like, who is this? I mean, it's totally different, being married to somebody than it is just being friends. And I was like, whoa, time out. What happened? So we still, even though I knew him as my friend, I had to learn him as my husband. And so his background and my background, yes, it was friction. We bumped heads. And then plus I had such a misconception. I didn't quite understand what it meant to really be submissive, because at that point in my marriage, because I hadn't been taught, I thought that being submissive was just saying yes to everything that he said. I was being pumped. I felt like that meant everything that he said. I was just to be like, okay, that's not being submissive.
Not at all.
We need to. That needs to be a lesson. What does it mean to be submissive? Because that is not what being submissive is. And so I lost my voice in the marriage, not because he took it. I gave it away. I gave it away. And so literally, I used to lose my voice all the time. Like I would get hoarse from singing and stuff like that. And the Lord basically dealt with me, was like, because you're not going to use it, then why do you need it?
Mm.
That's how the Lord had to take me through understanding the true meaning of being submissive, how I still can say what I need to say. God created two different individuals. Yes, he brought us together to be one, but that does not mean that, again, I bow to everything that he says, because sometimes I knew they were wrong decisions. And I didn't open my mouth and say anything because I was being submissive.
That's funny because we're like on the opposite side. Because
You
I'm
like,
like, God.
I
I think, and you know
He's
what
a
though?
gangster. Hey,
For
gangster. Gangster, y'all. I'm telling you. Adamsville, Bankhead gangster. Right?
for me, it was if I knew that not just necessarily I'm right, but if I knew what I'm saying, or if I knew the situation or the principle. Like, I'm big on principle. I'm big on, So if I know I'm right, or this is right and this is the right way to do it, or it's just principle, that I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna let you know. You know what I mean? And what I learned is I used to hear God, and he don't have to do it nearly as often now, and I thank God for that. But I would hear him say, "Be quiet, you be quiet, be quiet," and I would just right on and say it out of my mouth, but I started dealing with some issues as far as my throat just hurting
And the Lord
unnecessarily.
was like, close your mouth, girl.
And he said, the last thing God told me, and it really made me kind of like have a step back, is if you don't be quiet, I'm gonna shut you up. If you don't be quiet, I'm gonna shut you up. And it's like, okay, let me be quiet. And then once I got quiet, God was like, because I can do it better. I can show him better. And there have been so many times where I've been quiet, and Brandon will come and say, "Man, I was thinking about and I'd be like, God, glory to your name." Like, I appreciate you for coming through. But a lot of me was like, I want to tell you where you're wrong, and I want to show you. And God is like, no, let me show them. Like, I just drop seeds that I need you to drop, deliver it when I need to deliver it. As we was talking about earlier, deciphering like the minister aspect of it or the wife aspect of it, and understanding that I can't move based on my emotions and what I think, but close my mouth, and there's power in your silence.
Adam and Eve.
Woo.
The command was given to Adam. We all know that. He ate the fruit based on his wife. She could turn his heart. Women don't understand sometimes that you can turn our heart from God. That is why sometimes God wants you to be quiet, because God's trying to speak to him or whomever and get a word through. And if you say left, he'll just be like, all right, we're going left. Even though God is like, I said go straight.
Exactly.
Straight. But honey, maybe we should. Well, you know what? Maybe we should. We start second guessing ourselves, but we have to, as husbands, in order for your wife to be submissive, you've got to understand how to lead. You've got to understand how to hear God. And, man, Rod, y'all be killing it over there at Church ATL. But, I don't want to just take his home sermon. Huh?
Is it Roderick Murray?
Nah, Rod Green, not Murray. Yeah,
Okay.
I know Rod. Yeah. But he was just like, if the man is hearing from God in his will, in his direction, you're not submitting to the husband, you're submitting to God's will. And yeah, I know that. But when he said it again on Sunday, I was like, that's it. Staying focused on what God wants for my household, for what God wants for my marriage, for what God wants for my wife. And that's how I filter everything, And when she sees that, then she'll be like, all right, well, we just gonna line up with that because I know it's God,
And that's the way you honor and respect your husband. And we talked about that too.
That's a whole nother one, honor and respect.
Honor and respect. So I'm gonna let you in just a second, but I was gonna say with that, even though, yes, God told me to start using my voice, when I saw things, at the end of the day, though, if I say it to him, he still has the final word. And that's how I absolutely honor my husband. You know, if God gives me something, I'm gonna say it. And even if God doesn't give me something, sometimes it's my 100% flesh. And I may say it. But at the end of the day, you know, trusting the fact that my husband is the head of my household, he makes the final decision.
One thing I've learned since working in my church, I got to shout out Chris Comstock and my pastor, Pastor Greg. One thing that they teach us staff: speed of the leader, speed of the team. And the basis of that is, as men, as leaders of the household, and this goes to anybody watching, the message that you take from this, our vertical relationship with God totally determines what's going on horizontally. And I found that one of the enemy's biggest ploys is to get you to fight and be in combat with the physical person that's next to you. And we know it says we don't battle in flesh and blood, we battle in spirits and principality. So fight for your wife to get a clear understanding of what's going on, to get a clear understanding of where God wants to take your marriage. You gotta be going to God for the guidance and for the leadership. And what I found is there's so many times where there's a struggle, there's a spat between us, and when I try to go talk about it, try to go get an answer, it doesn't work. But if I take it to God, and I take it to God from a place of not God get her, but from a place of, because there have been prayers of God get her. Okay, let's just keep it
Heard it,
100.
okay.
Okay, there's definitely been those prayers.
Yeah.
But when you take it to God from a place of understanding that that's just you, she's you, y'all are one, so this is just me, and I'm her. So when I take it to God from a place of God, whatever she's struggling with, God, whatever her heart is heavy, God, whatever she's in desire of, whatever she's in need of, God, wherever she needs you to feel her in this time, God, whatever she's struggling with, God, I pray that you will work it out. I pray that you reveal to me how to respond. I'm talking about. Listen, y'all, anybody listening, take it to God. Because right on the other side of you taking it to God, there's an answer, and it just, the situation totally changes. When you take it to God, like, I can't express how important it is that it's not, you can't fix it, bro.
You can't.
Okay? Man of God, whoever you are watching right now, you can't fix it. But if you take it to God, God will, he'll move, and so many times it's faster than you would think.
Yes.
Because he wants the glory.
Man,
Yes.
He wants the glory. And when we try and fix it, we're getting the glory.
man.
And we're taking it away from the Father. So when we, like you said, when you pray and go up, like you said, he'll turn that thing around quick.
Man, it lines up. You go
Mhm.
up, situation lines up every
Mhm.
single time. So that's what I've definitely seen in the marriage and how I've seen us grow. And then in regards to like closing statements, if there's anything like I would just want to drive home as far as message wise, is marriage is something that you got to choose. Marriage is something that you got to wake up every day and choose that you're going to be in it, that you're going to sacrifice, that you're going to what's the word? Not conform, but what's the C word I'm trying to say? Compromise. And that's a difficult one to do, right? Especially when you got your wheel of where you want to go, but you got to choose this thing every day. It is a conscious decision that you got to wake up and make to be married again and to choose it. And it's an everyday choice.
A nugget that God gave me for Brandon and I is whenever we have disagreements or situations, instead of saying you could have did this better or you could have did this better, God said I need both of you to challenge yourself to say what could I have done better. Don't come to the table telling the next person what they could have done better. Bring to the table what you could have done. And if both of you are being intentional and actually seeking, looking within yourself to say, how could I have responded different? How could I have handled this differently? Then you're going to see growth and you're going to see change. And it don't create a space of fighting and pointing the fingers, which again is what the enemy wants us to do so often. Like he wants to create friction. God desires the body of Christ, especially marriages, to be this. You know what I mean? In sync, in one. And as long as there are divisions, misperceptions, this is what we'll get. So we just have to understand that don't be so quick to look at the next. Look at yourself. And if you can look at yourself and actually ask yourself, how could I have done this better? how can I be the best version of myself today? I'm not worrying about yesterday, but today in this situation, then you'll always be growing.
That is
Made me
excellent.
just even think, even again, going back to Adam and Eve, a couple of things statements I make out of that. With us starting our ministry, um, I've always said I don't like the phrase the first lady. And I don't.
Only lady.
That's number
That's exactly
one.
what you say.
I am the only lady. And number two, Eve was the first lady, and what did she do? And then the second statement that I'll make behind all of that is the blaming. I like you said that, what could I have done better? Because that was what Adam say. This woman that you gave me,
Adam, I say it every day.
No,
and
then Eve, it was the serpent. It's that blaming. It's blaming. It's pointing the finger and blaming. And like I said, even when we went to counseling, it was like, no, I wanted, the counselor to say what all he was doing wrong. And then when I really looked in the mirror, I realized what I brought to the table that needed to be corrected. So I like that.
Okay, well, for me, I would just say something I consistently say is just understanding the differences. I always talk about the differences between men and women, but also just the differences of our upbringing, because our upbringing molds us into who we are, but it does not define us. We can change, and going back to what you asked earlier, it was like the beginning was the biggest challenge. It was just like you said, knowing each other. Like I remember like it was yesterday. She arranged the kitchen when we moved in. I rearranged the kitchen the next day because I'm like, the seasonings go on this side, and she was like, this ain't your mama's house, but
He
it wasn't.
rearranged the kitchen the way his parents' house was,
But my
set up.
intention was not to change it the way my parents. It was, this is how I like it, because that is all I knew.
Right.
So when you get married, those first years, you're really learning each other. You're taking the separate situations, the separate upbringing, the separate lives, and you're molding those things together and coming up with something new. I love the sand that they do at the marriage ceremony. And they always talk about how you can't separate it, but you're taking they're usually two different colors, formed together. It's something totally different. And we've got to understand that in our marriages. Like we can't mold our marriage into what our parents had or what our grandparents had or what we saw Uncle Joe have or whatever. We've got to be the couple, the union that God wants us to be. We're creating something new, so that's something that I would hope that everybody would take away.
I think sometimes with what you're saying, when you become one, what I see happening is God takes the greatest parts of you and the greatest parts of her, and they make one. And in the same process, he like scrapes away the worst parts of you.
Iron sharpening.
Yes. And it makes such a, when you get into that flow state, when you get to that, like there's times when me and her, when we working together and we are egos are out of the way, pride is out of the way, we're really here for the betterment of both of us.
Unstoppable.
Nothing we can't do. And when we do it, it is like, yeah, y'all did that. And I believe that's what God wants, even for the body. He wants the greatest parts of us to be what's implemented into the body and how we function.
Awesome.
So, and I know there's been some behind the scene conversation, but I think it's a good time to put it out there. I think that even sparking from this conversation, this is going to be excellent to lead into you doing an all male panel to really talk about men learning how to really love their wives, what that looks like, God's design, even with the order that God gave, we know that it's God first, then it's the husband as the head, and then the wife. And so even with that, if God has called the man to lead, and I was going to say there's no manual, but yes, it is. The word of God is our manual and the way things should be done. but taking it from a biblical perspective
Mm-hmm.
of what that looks like with men leading and man sharpening iron of another man, to be able to talk about what that looks like leading and heading a household.
Yeah, me and Brandon had talked about that in a phone conversation. I think that's something we should do later on in the year. Absolutely. I think it's necessary because I think that so many men feel like they're all alone. We are taught to be alone. We are taught that we can't trust anybody. We are taught to not show our emotions. We are taught all of these things that are not biblical, whereas women are taught to have community and to communicate
Yeah.
and learn from one another, and men are not taught that. So I think it's something that's definitely needed, because there's so many men out here that want help, don't know how to ask, or we're making mistakes that we can avoid through the word of God if somebody would just say something, and I think that's something that we'll definitely do down the road. Don't worry, Brandon, you on board. You on board, sir.
Well,
You on board.
let me say this in regards to men, because I think that panel is 100% necessary. And one thing I can say, and I just want to reiterate this because I think when we first got on, they didn't catch it. So David was my boss 15 years ago, okay, at Longhorns. And I was a host that did not know how to stay at the hostess stand and just walk people to their table and walk back. I was all over the restaurant, okay?
All over.
But one thing I can say, I don't want to say publicly about you, David, is not knowing where our relationship would be now,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing that I'm watching you,
Mm-hmm.
watching your leadership when I worked at Longhorns. I gleaned from a lot of, even 15 years ago, I'm just a young man, fresh out of college. First off, you gave me an opportunity, which was big. I'm struggling for money at this time. But your leadership, first one there, always present, gave me, even though I did not have like discipline to control myself and to be at the place where I was supposed to be, you still like nurtured and loved me through the process. Like, hey, B, like, hey, this is where we see like you're doing great here, but this is where you need to grow. You know what I'm saying? And so that's one thing I've always respected and appreciated about you. And I just want to iterate that to men is that men, you got to be conscious of the way you live in your life because you don't know who's watching. You don't know the weight of your example. And so many men, the reason they go whichever way they go in life, the trajectory of their life is dependent on the example and the images of fatherhood, manhood, husbandry that they have around them. And you have always just been a gleaming example. And it shows now that you even do a podcast on a topic like this. It shows your leadership.
Well, thank you, sir. Did not expect that at all.
Head nod to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And before we close out, Omar, I just want you to know I love you. Omar said I'm not old. He said I'm wise.
That's my brother.
I love you, Omar. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, we're gonna wrap this thing up. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Ask that you again share, subscribe, all that good stuff. This is good information. This is good word. I just think people should see couples and be authentic and just have conversations and just understand that we all go through, we all struggle, we all have issues, but if we keep God as our source, our strength, and our guide, that our marriages can be wonderful. Our marriages can be the fairy tales that movies make them to be. I think there's such a false perception of marriage, but when you truly trust God, that joy is real. The love is real. The sacrifice is real. The passion is real. So just trust God and go to God with everything. So, Hennemans, thank you so much for joining
Thank you
us.
guys for having
Thank
us.
you for saying yes. Please, 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 go ahead and share your social media platforms if you like. All your organizations, because this brother is always moving, always hustling.
Always.
I have, since you gave me a compliment, I'm gonna give you this one. I'm gonna tell you. I have always admired your drive. Even as a young kid when you worked for me, it was always, like I said earlier, I saw what God was doing in you then. You know, I joke with him. I used to call him the mayor behind his back because he'd just be shaking everybody's hand and talking to everybody in the restaurant like he was a manager, you know. And but you have an infectious personality. You are truly a shepherd. You know, you truly love on people and you love on everybody. You don't discriminate. Your love has no bounds, you know, and that's something that I see. But I also love, you know, your commitment to community and how you're always hustling, you're always doing something, you know, and just amazing, man. So continue to do what you're doing, bro. For
We'll
real.
do. We'll do. You want to go into the platform?
No, you got it.
Okay. So we are the founder and co-founder, co-owner of Fit for the Future Community Development Group, which is a 501c3 certified nonprofit, where um, the acronym for FIT is Faith Inspired Thinking, and it's basically faith inspired thinking for the future, where we look to actively engage the community on a daily basis. And we do that through a number of different events, programs, and initiatives. One of our major programs is our mentoring program called the Men's Club. We mentor young men 3 days out of the week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, just teaching life skills about gentlemen, how to be a gentleman, about character, discipline, controlling their little bodies, and most importantly, understanding the concept that every day is a battle between you and you. And there's two versions of you. There's a version of you that wants to just fully do what the flesh wants to do, but then there's another version of you that is desiring and longing for God's spirit. And so we try to help them to tap into the spirit version of themselves. And we also do a lot of community engagement. You guys can find us on our website, www.fitforthefuture.today. It's www.fitforthefuture.today. And then my wife is also a spiritual coach, and I'll let her talk about that.
Okay, so yes, I am a spiritual coach, and the name of my business is, well, God's business is I Am Elevating, and pretty much what it is, or what we consist of, is helping people to unpartner from the low vibrations that causes the negative cycles in our lives. And we do that by tapping into the mind, the things that we think, tapping into our words, what we speak, and then tapping into the heart, which is our spirit and the essence of how we move. So God gave me this ministry to pretty much assist people in that unpartnering phase, to let go of those negative cycles so that we can go ahead and birth the purpose that God has on the inside of us. And you can find me on all platforms at I am Sherelle, CHARRELL.
Just like
That's it for me. Thank you guys so much for having us. Though. I
absolutely.
appreciate
We'll
it.
put all your information on our page as well, and
Awesome.
links and stuff like that. You have anything else, my love?
One thing I didn't hear you say, I know you say you do a lot of community events, but you didn't talk about
Yeah,
the
that's the gala.
Okay, yeah. So this year is Fit for the Future's 10-year anniversary. Thank y'all so much. This year is our 10-year anniversary. We've been operating in our community for 10 years, since 2014. And each year we do a gala where we take time to honor trailblazers who have blazed the trail of positive change, influence in the community. And then we also prepare future trailblazers by providing scholarship to graduating seniors from every high school in Douglas County. This year, we'll be hosting it at the Douglasville Conference Center on May 19th. Tickets are on sale right now. And the highlight of this year is that we are doubling everything that we do. Since our 10-year anniversary, we're doubling everything we do. So instead of giving one $1,000 scholarship to all 5 of the high schools, we're going to do 2 $1,000 scholarships at each of the high schools, which is going to total $10,000 in scholarships to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. So I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited about our guests. We have a phenomenal keynote speaker, Judge Barbara Caldwell, and our host is School Board Chairwoman Tracy Rucker Shaw. And we're just super excited. It's going to be a live event, a live band that'll be playing, great food, great entertainment. We'll have a live artist that'll be painting, and some other phenomenal surprises. So we just welcome you and invite you to be a part of that. Tickets are on sale, like I said, now, and we'll leave the link with you guys. So
we'll have that information on our page for you.
Absolutely, we'll put it on the page. But that's all I got, boo.
So again, we want to say thank you all so much for joining us on this evening. I had fun tonight. I think this was
Absolutely.
really, really fun. So glad to have the Penimans here. Again, we say thank you to you all. And we pray God's blessings over you as you all continue with all of the amazing work that you're doing. And so we just want to say until next time, we'll see you all next month. And hey, my wedding anniversary is coming up. We're getting ready to celebrate 26 years of marriage. So we're gonna take a little we're gonna take a little time away so we can go and love on each other. We can go refresh and
Pour
all of
into
that,
each other.
pour into each other, all that good stuff. So we will see you all next month. Again, thank you. Love you. Have a great night. Yeah, you weren't saying you weren't ready. You weren't ready. Okay, now we'll say it again. Bye. We'll see y'all later.